Hi, it's Ileana, and today I'm going to discuss interesting things about when I was in the secret space program and some similarities with Jean-Charles Moyen's testimony. He claims to be a French-Canadian secret space program experiencer. So when I had been on Planetary Corporation's Mars bases, every time I needed to go into the cybernetics lab, there would be a genetic scan on a portable genetic scanner. It would scan my hand and it would scan my whole genome, my whole DNA profile to make sure I wasn't a clone, to make sure I wasn't a cyborg, to make sure I didn't have any implants that I wasn't supposed to have other than the 4 Neuralink ones that had been created by the Nordics in the left side of my brain. So those were Planetary Corp Neuralink implants. Those were sanctioned in the cybernetics labs for me to have, and they were put in the cybernetics labs, and as well to make sure that I wasn't a shapeshifter or some kind of NET, or that I didn't have genetics spliced into me that I shouldn't have. So this is what was being scanned for, as well as any other anomalies, things that shouldn't be in my body, AI or anything, other implants, like I was saying. And this was done every time I would enter the cybernetics lab, every day that I would go to work inside the cybernetics labs. And I developed different biological drug serums, biological human cyborgs. I developed regenerative technologies, testing the holographic medical pods, Neuralink implants, holographic technology, connected to the holographic medical pods, smart suits. So that, and I was working on a lot of genetic stuff, creating human ET hybrids with different genetic stranding and genomes, and working on biological serums, literally, that can make your molecular structure change and give you temporary traits and physical appearances of extraterrestrials, because you can splice genomes with biological drug serums and temporarily change the body mass, molecular structure, biology of human beings into ETs. Skin color, height, weight, eye color, hair color, anything basically can be changed. And some of the genetics are more complicated. Like if you're trying to grow a tail or give 4 legs instead of 2, 3 eyes, that's a little bit more complicated, but it can be done with these genetic modifications that are temporary, or they can be permanent. It depends on what the experiments were. So this is what I had been working on, and oftentimes I would end up looking like blue ETs with stripes and long white hair. I seem to be okay with those feature combinations, blue skin, white hair, and sometimes stripes or spots. I was fine with that, and big eyes. So that's the kind of ETs I looked like when I was trying out these genetic sequences on myself of various humanoid-looking extraterrestrials, or ETs. So what I found interesting was that Jean-Charles Moyen, he said that when he was about 8 or 9 years old, something like that, he was at camp and that something happened to him and he was taken to a hospital. And from there, they scanned his mind, they did MRIs, they found something special about him, and they took him down to the basement of the hospital They scanned his genetics with a portable scanner, and they took him through a portal somewhere else for testing. And then he was returned to the camp, and later on found himself in the secret space programs on the Solaris, on a ship called the Solaris, where he had met a reptilian insectoid-looking guide named Victor. So the genetic scanning to see his genetics is similar to what I experienced in Planetary Corp in the cybernetics labs attached to the Mars bases. And I also had a guide by the name of Zagor, who was reptilian insectoid looking. And he had been genetically engineered, so by Draco, and then his civilization was freed from them. So they're now free. And Zagor would guide me in Dark Fleet, and he would help me on the Mars bases as well. And though the Mars bases, they don't welcome reptilians or hybrids that originally were created by Dracos, but Zagor had special clearance to help me, and he never did anything bad to me or anybody else as far as I'm concerned. When he was working with me, he didn't do anything nasty to me or anybody else on the bases. He was given clearance. He came in. He helped me out with genetic projects of sequencing different ET genomes. That's what he was working with me on with the holographic technology. So, and he always gave me guidance. He always helped me get around the cybernetics technicians, because those scientists didn't really like me. I tended to want to work alone on experiments. I didn't want to always work in groups of people. I wanted to run my experiments a certain way, to be very meticulous and thorough and recheck testing. So it didn't make me conducive to working in teams of cybernetics technicians and scientists. But I seemed to work okay with Zagor, and that's why he remained on the base for a while, worked with me on the genetics projects. And I knew him through Dark Fleet, and Planetary Corp knew of him, so I had requested for him to work with me because I needed clearance to some sections of the genetics projects that the other cybernetics technicians and scientists weren't letting me go to those levels. So Zagor had higher clearances than them, and he was let in to work with me because he was able to clear the roadblocks that I was facing to complete my own work on those Mars bases. So I was left alone to work with him. I knew him from Dark Fleet. I knew him from Planetary Corp. He was my guide. He was there quite a bit, especially on the Mars bases. And when I was test piloting with my Neuralink implants remotely various crafts, or when I was physically on crafts, he would always be there as well. So it's similar to Victor, the guide that Jean-Charles Moyen had, except Victor is a member of the Galactic Federation of Worlds. According to Jean-Charles Moyen, Zagor has green skin, black eyes, kind of ridges on his forehead. He is 14 to 16 feet tall. Again, he has reptilian insectoid features, so it's obvious that he's a hybrid with the green skin, and he does wear a smart suit, so which protects him in outer space and stuff. And this smart suit has nanotechnology in it, similar to the smart suits worn by the Planetary Corp SSP assets. And Zagor has features that might look similar to Jean-Charles Moyen's guide Victor. Victor also has green skin and these dark big eyes. So the features look similar. They might not be the same species, but both have sort of like reptilian insectoid features that are distinct. And you can tell by the features what species these beings might be from, these guides, by their physical descriptions, by the way they communicate telepathically or verbally, by the language, by the intonations. So there's a difference, but Jean-Charles Moyen also says he was part of, and part of Solar Warden stuff. Everything is interconnected. So it's interesting. I was connected to Dark Fleet, and Solar Warden has been working towards trying to get unification with these different programs, and so is Galactic Federation of Worlds, to bring all these SSP programs to work together towards a more beneficial outcome and not their dark agendas. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully these programs become more unity consciousness instead of being dark and self-serving, but that's what they are, and that's why they're secret. And recently, what was interesting is on May the 6th, 2022, there was what looks like a fleet of UFO crafts, 20 to 30 crafts, passing by the ISS live feed camera footage, passing by Earth orbit, and they were in an arrow formation. And they're not Starlink satellites because those travel in a line, and these guys were traveling in a group formation that looked like an arrow. And they looked like they were round, saucer-shaped UFOs, and they passed by the ISS live orbital feed of Earth surveillance, studying the Earth, and they were recorded on camera, and the feed was not cut. They just they recorded it, and they flew by in a tight formation. And I think this is significant, because I was just writing in my book, Ileana's Star Journeys with the UFOs, ETs, SSPs, and Past Lifetimes, Volume 1 and 2. I was writing about Space Force and Space Command having the TR-3s and the TR-10 crafts that they're experimenting on, that eventually they'll disclose that these crafts are theirs, and as well that Earth Defense Force and the Space Alliance, they are going to eventually disclose that these space programs, secret space programs, exist, and Planetary Corp supplies a lot of the different newly updated ships to Solar Warden, to also to Space Force. So eventually the information about the TR-3s and even the higher models will be disclosed. I think by influence of Earth Defense Force giving permission to Space Force and Space Command to disclose that they have these anti-gravitics technologies, and even plasma engine technologies, that the TR-3s and up, that this technology is new. is going to be presented as new, even though that's not new. That's been around for almost 100 years, maybe more. So, it's very interesting what's happening. That the ISS was even allowed to record 20 to 30 UFO ships in this fleet formation just passing by. It's preparing us for disclosure, literally. So it has been mentioned that the Earth Orbiter NASA Earth Study cam footage of those 20 to 30 UFOs that were spotted flying what looks like above Earth orbit could actually be a reflection of lights coming from boats that are fishing for squid, because that orbiter cam off the ISS, it sometimes picks up Earth stuff, not just space stuff, as reflections. So it could be actually camera refraction lighting, refractory images from Earth things like boats with their lights turned on, especially at night. Sometimes they're fishing for squid. So this is a possible hypothesis of what potentially that moving fleet was, that was in the shape of the arrow formation, or it could actually be UFOs. It's just that things like this have been spotted off and on since 2020. And one guy who studies camera angles and stuff said that he noticed the patterns of the lights were actually similar in space and on Earth to those boats. He actually confirmed the dates and matched the date stamps on fishing boats that were fishing at night with their lights on for squid. And the patterns in space, what the Earth cam orbiter of the ISS caught was the reflection and the result of those lights. So again, there's a lot of things going on in space. And a couple of years ago, there was this bird of prey ship. It was an actual ship that was caught on one of the orbiter video, and that wasn't a reflection of anything. It was a triangular craft that was most likely a reptilian ship. The formation looks to me like a reptilian ship, and it's been dubbed the bird of prey. So, and it actually it passed one of the ISS crafts. It passed it and went above it and flew above it. It was recorded on camera, and it's in the NASA archives. So that was an actual craft. So crafts have been seen and recorded by ISS cameras passing by. So again, it's almost always important to do due diligence and discernment to what's flying out there. And sometimes it is mistaken for UFOs. So potentially that fleet of UFOs is actually reflection of lights coming off of boats fishing for squid at night. Because again, ISS cams study Earth stuff and space stuff. So sometimes there's kind of almost cross-matching of things being captured on video. So I just wanted to put this in as a disclaimer of what that fleet of UFOs potentially could be. It could be something else. And Planetary Corp had a timeline on their holographic databases that we would get disclosure about the TR10s, 3B to TR10s, from anywhere from 2040, starting from 2040 into 2060s, as well as learning about the secret space programs by 2060. So there was a timeline rollout plan for these disclosures. So it's interesting, and by 2030s, we would get to hear that there's potentially humanoid life forms out there in space. 2030s, 2040s, that was on the timeline. And also potentially introducing humanoid-looking ETs to us humans on Earth. That was also on the timeline, and various regenerative medicine projects with biological drug serums by 2030s. So the fact that we're potentially seeing Galactic Federation of Worlds craft on ISS feed is interesting. I'm not discounting that these crafts could have been somebody else's, but Space Alliance, along with Earth Defense Force, have agreements to allow extraterrestrial craft to be recorded by Earth-based surveillance systems from the ISS and any future surveillance that's going to be up and above Earth orbit. So permissions are there. So there's going to be more of that being seen, more sightings of UFOs, TR3s and higher models, all the way to TR10s. And I actually said in the books that I agree with Michael Salla that these crafts will be eventually disclosed to the public by Space Force, Space Command, and any other entities that are military-based. Eventually, they have to disclose this type of technology. They can't keep it secret forever. And it's not even, the TR3s are not even the newest technology. Planetary Corp has ships that go faster than the speed of light, beyond the speed of light. And they're trying to incorporate crystalline engines, crystalline technologies into their ships, experimental spaceflight ships. So they're going away from plasma engines. They're going more toward crystalline. That's why I was literally recruited in Planetary Corp, because they wanted my memories of the crystalline technologies working on the ARC ships. And everything is energy based. Everything has frequencies, different crystal properties create different attuning frequencies, and that's what helps to go beyond faster than the speed of light. You apply different frequencies, different light codes, and it creates stable warp fields that don't require large engines on crafts. So this engines are not huge, and they're not plasma cores anymore. So this is what they've been working on from my memories that I remember. So I just wanted to sort of talk about that, and the fact that we're getting more UFO sightings. That will happen more often now, because permissions have been given to disclose to us that extraterrestrial life exists out there, that it does exist out there, and it's going to start by us seeing more crafts in the night sky, above Earth orbit, recorded on the ISS and other surveillance systems. And who knows? It's a lot of these events have been pre-planned already and pre-approved to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of what I talk about in the books, the dates, it actually could happen that way or similar. So far, the pattern has been almost everything has happened just as I've written about it for the dates. It's interesting. So I just wanted to talk about that a little bit, and I like to compare if there's testimony from other SSP experiencers like Jean-Charles Moyen that's similar to mine, and even the beings are similar. Although I don't think Victor is from the Secret Space Program, he's from the Galactic Federation of Worlds, but he did help Jean-Charles Moyen navigate being in the Secret Space Program. So he was his guide, just like Zagor was my guide, and he helped me navigate Planetary Corp, basically. The genetic stuff in Planetary Corp did help me with that, and I still communicate to Zagor. Sometimes I still communicate with him. Once in a while we telepathically talk. He still refuses to learn English. He says it would dishonor his people. He still talks in a language that is very guttural and sounds like Klingon. But I don't channel him anymore actively. He does speak to me telepathically. It's much easier to hold the connection, the energy flow this way through telepathy. So we can communicate that way. And I communicate with a lot of other beings like the Andromedans, Pleiadians, Arcturians, and other beings telepathically. That's my main form of communication with extraterrestrials that are benevolent and positive. So my ET contact experiences do continue. It's more of a telepathic experience now. Not as often physical. Sometimes it is, but it's more telepathic. And I'm in more communication with my higher selves, Janaea and Miara. And interestingly enough, Miara is an Irish name. The origin of the name is Irish. So, and Janaea is apparently grace of God, the translation. Miara is water, and Janaea is grace of God, because I just looked up their names, the meaning of their names. So it's interesting. Everything is energetically connected, even the names of beings and their frequencies. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you so much, and namaste.